Today on Network Africa, the Ivorian constitutional referendum held yesterday, but President Ouattara says there were disturbances. In a surprise move today, South Africa's state prosecutor drops charges against the country's embattled finance minister, Pravin Gordhan. And 16 bodies have washed ashore the coast of Libya as world leaders continue to seek a resolution to end migrant deaths at sea. Hello everyone, I am BC Adebayo. Let's begin Network Africa with a review of the major stories that made headlines over the weekend. Exploded late on Saturday in Libya's eastern city of Benghazi, killing 4 people and wounding at least 14. Among those killed in the attack in the city's central Kish district was Mohamed Bouhayes, who headed an anti-corruption body. Bouhayes was also a supporter of the Libyan National Army commanded by Khalifa Haftar, who has been waging a 2-year military campaign against Islamics and other opponents in Benghazi. After struggling to make progress, Haftar's forces seized several key neighborhoods earlier this year, though they still have not brought the city under full control. While fighting continues in peripheral areas and bombings against Haftar's forces have persisted. Elsewhere, turnout was low in Ivory Coast's capital Abidjan Sunday as voters decided whether to approve a new constitution that President Alassane Ouattara argues will guarantee peace in the wake of years of political turmoil. Under Ouattara, Ivory Coast has made an impressive recovery since a 2011 civil war capped a decade-long crisis. However, despite 5 years of peace, Ivorians remain deeply divided along political and ethnic fault lines. Opposition parties call for a boycott of the vote, arguing that the new text was designed to further entrench Ouattara's political coalition. Finally, 2 suicide bombers killed at least 8 people on Saturday in the northeastern Nigerian city of Maiduguri. There was no immediate claim of responsibility, but the attack bore the hallmarks of Boko Haram, which has been trying to set up an Islamic state to the northeast. The Nigerian army, aided by troops from neighboring countries, has recaptured most of the territory. And despite calls for boycott by the opposition, Côte d'Ivoire held its constitutional referendum yesterday, and everything was going well, and so we thought. Well, President Alassane Ouattara has reviewed the process and admitted there were a few disturbances, but termed them isolated incidents. In some places, youth destroyed polling stations in the city of Abidjan, where one of the opposition leaders had called for a boycott. The proposed changes to the constitution, which are likely to be approved, would abolish stringent requirements about the national identity of presidential candidates. The issue has contributed to years of unrest after it was used by the former administration of Laurent Gbagbo to prevent President Ouattara from standing. Meanwhile, over in Gambia, opposition parties say they have resolved on one candidate to run in the next presidential election against long-standing President Yahya Jammeh. It will be the biggest opposition alliance the country has ever seen. The anointed contender, businessman Adama Barrow, is of the main opposition, United Democratic Party. He beat candidates from 3 other parties at a convention held in the capital, Banjul. President Jammeh has been in power since 1994, following a coup. But critics say he plans to become a life president by suppressing all forms of opposition. Now let's get an update on one of the major stories this weekend, and that's the death of a fish seller who was reportedly crushed by a refuse lorry while he was trying to retrieve his fish. Thousands of Moroccans have been out on the streets since yesterday protesting his death, which has raised widespread anger even on social media. His death drew parallels to that of a Tunisian fruit seller in 2010, which helped spark the Arab Spring uprisings. Morocco's King Mohammed has ordered officials to visit Mr. Fikri's family. The Interior and Justice Ministries have also pledged to hold an investigation. And meanwhile, South Africans still surprised by a move by the state prosecutor who dropped fraud charges against Pravin Gordhan, executing a U-turn in a case that has rattled financial markets and drawn accusations of political meddling. Shaun Abrahams said he was satisfied that Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan had no intention to act unlawfully when he approved an early pension payment of about $80,000 for former employee Evan Pillay. Mr. Abrahams said the decision to charge Mr. Gordhan with fraud over the payment was not taken by him, but by prosecutors below him. Mr. Abrahams had announced earlier this month that Mr. Gordhan will stand trial for fraud in a decision that caused outrage in South Africa. Mr. Gordhan was due to appear in court on Wednesday. And so, guess who's pleased with how this has turned out? It's the ruling African National Congress. It released a statement shortly after the announcement was held, saying the charges had a negative impact on the economy and had raised unnecessary speculation about the real motive. The party called on the appointing authority, a reference to President Jacob Zuma, to hold talks with Mr. Abrahams to avoid a repeat of this and to protect the independence and integrity of the National Prosecuting Authority. Joining me now from Johannesburg is the CEO of Juntos Media, Mr. Lucas Moloi. Mr. Moloi, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, and good day to your viewers.
How are South Africans receiving news of charges against Gordhan dropped?
Sure. A bit of a mixed reaction. One, perhaps, the relief that the finance minister will not be dragged in the court of law, and he can focus on stabilizing the economy of South Africa before also the agencies come and start perhaps even underwriting South Africa. But also there is a feeling of disappointment and anger that from the beginning of this case, the question had been asked to say, do we have enough to even be going out onto the media and let the world hear mixed stories about what is happening? And Mr. Abrahams continued to even issue the minister with the notice to appear before the court of law. And this is what has been asked, do you have the facts? And the facts are not there, like it was said, and now he drops the charges, and that just throws a bad light at it.
Well, I'm sure the question on many people's mind is, what really did the prosecutor say? Was he apologetic? He had taken the nation through the expectation one government official will finally be nabbed for something like this?
As usual, as you know, the politicians and that, what he's doing is coming back and trying to get someone else to take the blame and saying, well, I was only following up on what the senior or what the prosecutors were looking at. It was not me that took the decision, but my 5 other colleagues had taken the decision and I had to act on it. So he's not taking responsibility of it. He's trying to shift it to the other people that are there, suppose in the office with him.
Well, so Vincent, what happens next?
Well, in this case, it would mean that the case that the minister had to answer to on Wednesday, he would not do that. He would now focus on the economy and that. But then what then is a question is the EFF and other political parties are now coming in and saying perhaps then Mr. Shaun Abrahams needs now to resign out of failure or his error in judgment of announcing something like that and coming through 2 days before the minister has to appear, he comes and withdraw the charges. And during the weekend, there was a lot of talk about he will come in today to withdraw the case as he did not have enough evidence to prosecute. This is what was said about a week ago, that there wasn't enough to prosecute the minister, but he still went on in making this press statement. So I think at this moment, the political parties are calling for heads to roll.
Well, let's talk about the minister himself. How has he reacted to this news of the charges being dropped?
Look, I think at this moment the minister feels a lot vindicated. Perhaps also again, he's also a politician. We shouldn't forget that. So he probably also feels stronger. He's a little bit stronger. He won this round of a battle in that. And look, he's got a lot of public sympathy and that. And I think it is something that he is now going out and saying, as I have said before, that I do not have a case to answer. That is why I did not even feel at going to present myself to the senior prosecutor.
Well, Vincent, before I let you go, it appears the ANC is the happiest of all as it tries to reconsolidate on its political power. Do you think this was all to its advantage?
Look, again, politicking. If you sit down and look, these people that are fighting are all ANC cadres fighting each other. And look, a lot of speculation has been said to say that there are camps in the movement, and these camps are fighting using state organizations, state entities to fight personal battles or political battles. So I don't know if the ANC can come out and say we are happy because this is a government that is led by the ANC, and I think even the mistakes that it does are sort of mistakes that reflect back to the party itself.
All right, thank you very much, Vincent Moloi, for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
In other stories now, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon told the Security Council that South Africa, Burundi and Gambia's announcements of their intention to withdraw from the Rome Statute sent a wrong message about their commitment to justice. Burundi's parliament voted overwhelmingly in October to withdraw from the International Criminal Court after anger over a UN report naming officials accused of orchestrating a torture and killing of political opponents. South Africa and Burundi have officially notified the United Nations of their intent to withdraw from the ICC, the 1998 treaty establishing the Hague-based court. Well, Gambia said it also plans to withdraw from the court, but it has not yet notified the United Nations. Momentum is building in Africa for a mass withdrawal from the International Criminal Court after South Africa's shock decision to leave the Hague-based institution. The UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, raises concerns that 3 African countries have stated their intent to withdraw from the ICC.
Not all countries accept the ICC's jurisdiction. Even some of those that do not always support the court fully. And some are concerned that the court has convicted only Africans despite evidence of crimes in other parts of the world.
Mr. Ban said that South Africa, Burundi and Gambia's announcements of their intention to withdraw from the Rome Statute could send a wrong message on these countries' commitment to justice.
These challenges are best addressed not by diminishing support for the court, but by strengthening it from within. Deterring future atrocities, delivering justice for victims, and defending the rules of war across the globe are far too important priorities to risk a retreat from the age of accountability that we have worked so hard to build and solidify.
An international lawyer at the Southern Africa Litigation Center in Johannesburg, Angela Modukuti, explains that the withdrawal from the ICC will result in a massive justice gap because the court is the only framework where crimes against humanity can be dealt with.
South Africa's reputation has suffered significantly. I also think South Africa may have perhaps triggered an avalanche of withdrawals, as we see there's talk of withdrawal in Gambia, in Burundi. And I think given that Gambia and Burundi have, unfortunately, a very dark human rights record, and so it's almost no surprise that initiation of withdrawal has come from that side. But from South Africa, it is very surprising. And if nations like this seek to pull out of the Rome Statute, what more for other countries where human rights have no place?
According to the ICC, the withdrawal will only come into effect 1 year after notification to the Secretary General, who is the depository. The Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court is the international treaty that founded the court. It was adopted at the Rome Conference on the 17th of July in 1998 and entered into force on the 1st of July 2002. Still ahead on Network Africa, violence erupts in the Central African Republic as French troops prepare to depart. We'll join us again.